We finally get some good news from Jerome, Tang, and the Wildcats on the international front. We have a new portal edition to talk about right here on Locked On Kansas State.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rauh, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. This is a loaded day. We are catching up. We are talking about breaking news. We've had a football episode, a women's basketball episode, and now we're diving into the men's side because the news doesn't stop for Kansas State, and we got to make sure we keep that momentum rolling. We got a new portal edition to talk about today, and Jerome Tang finally might have some momentum. We're going to dig into that in this episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. We're diving into the new portal edition from the international side. We're going to talk what's left, what needs to be done in the portal, and then there's a new coach to the staff of Jerome Tang. So lots to talk about on today's episode of Locked On Kansas State. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, and we are continuing to grow this channel day after day. And I thank you so much once again for making this show your first listen. But Kansas State lands Serbian star, and I already heard trying to replace the Brennan Hassan of the Amarillo assassin. I've heard the Serbian sharpshooter. I've already heard that one on this one, and I like it. I mean, I think maybe a little wood shopping could do here, maybe a little work, but not too bad. But Andrej Kostic decides to commit to Kansas State, and this is a big one. This is on the same level, if not maybe potentially a little higher than the Nate Johnson ad, the MAC Player of the Year, that recently committed to Kansas State as well. 6'6" Serbian guard, recently played for KK Dynamic in Serbia, which is Serbia's top league. And in that top league, he averaged 16.4 points per game and shot 35% from beyond the arc. So good stuff right off the bat, doing it at a high level in the international spectrum. So Serbia's top league at 18 years old, he's doing this. So really cool stuff. And although he is young and at 18 years old, he already has some great experience against some really top end talent. His international experience includes playing in the Adidas Next Gen tournament, where he had 15.7 points per game and 5.7 rebounds over 2 years. So he has some really interesting experience at this age already. So a really cool piece to add to Kansas State, a much needed piece to add after all of the departures and really just trying to get this team back on track. And it has been a very tough road since they've stopped playing in this season after the Big 12 tournament. It's been sad sitting here waiting for this build up to go. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of juice from Jerome Tang. And I'll be honest with you, I was underwhelmed from this portal class until right now, because I was waiting for something, a spark from these international world, if you will. And I know we've heard about this international thing for quite some time now, and yeah, we're going to get them. They're going to happen. And we didn't get these news. And finally we get something land on Tuesday afternoon, and we get one from Andrej Kostic. And apparently he's not the only international player that will be coming to Kansas State. As of right now, he is, but we'll see in the future. And we'll talk about that with the upcoming still needs in the portal. But here's another thing that was reported, and this was reported from multiple different locations, On3, EMA Online, Topeka Capital Journal, all talked about this. The NIL deal is between $1 million and $2.5 million. Now, I think it's more close to the $1 million side. But even if that's the case, it shows, one, that they're investing in international talent, and that's cool. And you got to find yourself you got to have some sort of core and some sort of routine in this new landscape of college basketball. We see Duke that forces and pushes towards these top freshmen, these top one and done type of players, and it's working for them. And then you have other teams that will focus on being the old guy in the room, and like Houston, the retention model where they want to bring players back and develop them till they run out of eligibility or declare for the draft. And that's the only way they're leaving. Personally, I think that's the best route to go for fans and everything, and just for a program in general. But that doesn't work for everybody in the world of NIL and the transfer portal, where people are, tampering in light, saying it lightly. I mean, they're tampering, they're pushing people out into the portal, and they're getting some players to leave for a bag. So I don't know if this is going to be the new route for Kansas State. If they're going to focus on this international route year in and year out instead of the traditional recruiting routes or the traditional portal routes, which is wild to say with it saying traditional portal, because this new transfer portal seems to be changing every single year. But 1 million or 2.5 million, and just for the sake of things, let's just say 1 million, because I do really think it's on the lower end. But that's still higher compared to what we were hearing from some of the rumblings of some of the players who decided to leave in the transfer portal. There were multiple players that left in the portal that we thought were going to stick around, that we thought would potentially stick around to build this Houston model, this retention model that Jerome Tang continued to talk about all season long in press conferences, but they wanted a little bit more NIL money. But the reports were that the NIL money was nowhere near this 1 million or even $2.5 million mark. It was a slight increase, is what we're hearing from some of the rumblings from some of the insiders that cover the Wildcats in that regard. So it's an interesting point, because Jerome Tang focused so hard on that Houston model all season long. Has his thought process changed? Or did he realize that maybe he eventually wants to do that, but just not with that group? Or what was it? Did he find a shiny toy across the sea that he wanted to make sure he grabbed? I'm not sure. Either way, I'm super excited that we're getting Andrej Kostic to come to play for Kansas State. And the reason behind it is because he has the true ability to be an NBA-type talent, and that's why he's coming to the NCAA to prove that at this type of level. Again, as I mentioned, he played for a top league in Serbia, almost averaged 16 points, and this wasn't a U18 league, but it's a really good league. A really good league, and a lot of things to be excited about if you're Kansas State, who gets them over. 18 years old, ton of potential though, ton of experience already at this. You get the opportunity to get a Serbian in the college ranks, and for example, European stars, they find a way to steal the spotlight in the NFL draft and the NBA draft all the time. And one of the best players in the NBA right now, won multiple MVPs, Nikola Jokic, is a Serbian. So, not saying they're all the same, not saying we're all the same, but it's just an interesting thing to keep in mind if you're going to take that international route. And we're looking at Serbia. Looks like we're looking at some German players, and we'll see what happens in the future for Kansas State. But I am super excited that Kostic is potentially going to be a superstar at Kansas State. Could he be the top player for Kansas State next year? I mean, I think he very well could. I think him and Nate Johnson together could be a really good piece. I think if you have the ability to just let Bashir just let it rain and shoot 10, 12 3-point shots and hope that 6 or 7 of them fall, then you'll have potentially a really good team next season. Defense could be an issue, but if there's one thing that I think that can be improved in off-season workouts, when I think of this coaching staff, it's defense. So I'm optimistic again. I'm cautious. I'm going to remain cautious for this entire offseason, because I don't think that there is a piece that's available anymore that'll make me get that cautionary tale out of my mind. And I think I might be a lunatic if I remove that cautionary tale after not making the tournament 2 years in a row. So, although I think that we're starting to get the right direction, we're starting to go in the right way for this men's basketball team after a very slow start to this portal, after a very underwhelming start to this portal. I'm starting to see the direction, and it's gray. We're just filling in the shadows right now, putting the numbers in the little spots, waiting for the colors to arrive in the mail. I think that's where we're at right now for the paint by numbers of this program. The papers are coming in. They're getting printed out, but we're not ready to color the yellow at number 1 and the blue at number 2. We're not ready for that. Not yet. We need a couple more pieces. And that's what I want to talk about next. What pieces remain to be added and what should be added for Kansas State? Because we got to get back to the tournament this next season. Let's talk about that next right here on Locked On Kansas State. This episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, from dining out and online shopping to entertainment, it is very easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. No, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, spending all in one place, so you stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I first started Monarch Money, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget even smarter and save more. So take out the stress of your finances with Monarch Money and take control. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. And welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button because we are growing every single day. Talking about Kansas State landing the Serbian star, Andrej Kostic, on this episode today. And again, 6'6", coming from KK Dynamic, and this kid is dynamic. He's going to be very fun to watch at the NCAA level, and hopefully these pieces fit in a better way than they did last year, especially if they're spending the amount of money on this international talent that has been reported. We all know that the money doesn't mean wins. We all know that the money in NIL doesn't mean NCAA tournament. We kind of got a bad taste in our mouth from that because of last year. Coleman Hawkins making $2 million last season, but the pieces with him and around him just didn't mesh. It didn't work out. Not blaming Coleman Hawkins. I'm kind of blaming the whole roster as a whole. It didn't mesh. It didn't work out. So hopefully the pieces that are added this year work together in tandem. Whatever buy-in, whatever need to be ready for this season coming up needs to happen at a much sooner pace. Because whatever happened last year, we weren't ready until it was way too late. And that cannot happen again this coming season. I don't think you can afford to miss the tournament 3 times in a row. I don't think you can. I think we're going to dive into that in another episode because I have some thoughts, and I think that one might take a full 30 minutes. So let's dive into what's next here. After Andrej Kostic, you're starting to get a pretty decent portal class because you have no reason not to, because you have to. You have to have a decently sized portal class because you lost so many players in the portal. Quite a bit, actually. So you bring in guys like Nate Johnson from MAC Player of the Year, who from Akron, who has the ability to be a pretty good combo guard and drives the lane. It's not afraid to be aggressive at the basket. It's good at the free throw line. I think he's probably your everyday ball handler at right now, assuming that we don't have David Castillo do that. And I think as of right now, I'm not ready to say that he is the guy. I hope I'm shocked, and I hope that my opinion of that changes because I think he can be that guy. I think he needs a strong offseason, though, to prove me otherwise. I'm Team Castillo, but I'm Team Future Castillo. Not right away. At this moment in time. So I think Nate Johnson's going to be that guy that probably is the main guy with the ball. Not sure that's the best decision when it comes to facilitating, but just based on his aggressiveness to the basket, that's just where I sit. Kostic, I think, has a good idea to do that. I don't want Bashir to be the ball handler. I don't think his defensive ability and him facilitating is at best. I want him to just be a spot and shoot guy because he's not afraid to throw it up. And I mentioned this before on another show, but I think the best case scenario, and this means we have to add more in the portal, the best case scenario for us is for Bashir to come off the bench so he can be a spot and shoot guy, not in the starting lineup. So hopefully that's the case moving forward. But there's a couple other portal names that I've come across with either some ties to Kansas State or recent ties in the past, like last transfer portal last year, that are back in the portal again. And could they come to Kansas State this time around? Could that happen? We'll see. And we see some of the other players that left in the portal finally getting some spots. For example, Doug McDaniel has committed to Memphis. He's going to go join Penny Hardaway in Memphis. And that seems like an interesting landing spot because there were some ripples between Jerome, Tang, and Doug McDaniel earlier in the season. I mean, it seems like there's always a storyline when it comes to Memphis and some player. Could it be Doug McDaniel this year? I guess we'll find out. But let's dig into a couple players here. And I think it'd probably be smart. I think we're going to dig into 4 different players. And I think it'd be smart to just start with the other international player that sounds like will be coming to Kansas State as well. And that's Elias Rapieque. He is a great German player, 6'8", 220-pound forward. He is really, really good. And what I mean by that is he has been one of the only players in the U21 professional league, in the Euro League, to get actual Euro League minutes. And there was this scouting Twitter, Armand Jokovic put this out on Twitter that said, the 6'8", 220-pound forward is a do-it-all for who can impact the game at both sides. He's averaging 4.3 points and 2.1 rebounds, 1.5 assists in the game in the Euro League, being one of the youngest players actually getting sustainable minutes. But when he's sent down to the lower division, so in this case, just the next level below the U21 Euro League, he's crushing it. He's going 20.5 points per game, 6.8 rebounds, 6.6 assists, showcasing he has a great upside. And he thinks that this 21-year-old, he's a little older than what we're getting from the Serbian, will be one of the most experienced prospects to go to the NCAA this next season. So hopefully Rapieque can also join Kostic in this new Kansas State blueprint, if you will. I'd love it. I'd love if that's the approach we're taking, because not many other schools are doing that. From what I was hearing with the Kostic recruitment, it was between us and Illinois. And I'm guessing not the news finally came out once Stojakovic, the son of Peja Stojakovic, committed to Illinois. I think Kostic decided to go a different route. That's what it sounds like. Don't have any insider information on that, but just based on how the dominoes fell and how the news came out, that's what it sounds like. Let's get into some players on the state side, though, and how they could fit with Kansas State. I've heard this one on another podcast. Shout out to the 3 Mile guys. Those guys are great. Love listening to those guys. And they talked about a player that was in the recruiting cycle in the portal last year, potentially coming to Kansas State, never landed at Kansas State, went to Florida Atlantic instead, and that's Baba Miller. And Derek Young has came out and said that they don't really have any ties this year, and that's probably the case because this team's not as good as they were 2 years ago when they made the Elite Eight. But he fits so well. And the reason he fits so well is because he's a big, and that's exactly what Kansas State needs. 6'11", 215. He's outstanding. He played 30 minutes per game in 34 games last season for Florida Atlantic, averaged 11.3 points, averaged 7 rebounds, almost 2 blocks per game, and still got 3 assists. Only averaged about 2 turnovers per game. Not that bad for a big guy. He's still out in the portal right now. I have a feeling that if you went and grabbed him, it probably cost a little bit. Are you willing to do that? Is this team willing to spend the money? When we just started this portal cycle, I was telling you how an On3, an anonymous coach or scout in the ACC, told On3 that it was going to take about $6 million to make a starting lineup in the top 25 this season. We're now hearing that teams like Kentucky and Duke are spending well over $10 million on their roster. I don't think Kansas State's going to get anywhere near that. Now, does that mean that they can't compete? No, that doesn't mean that. But after last season, the Coleman Hawkins experience, and then heading into what we're dealing with right now, I think NIL is a little cautionary. People are a little hold your horses, right? Even though it's probably not your money. But Baba Miller, maybe, could he come to Kansas State? I hope so. I think he'd be a good fit. I agree with Derek Young. James Scott is another big man that has been connected to Kansas State. Louisville Cardinal. He'll be a junior, 6'11", 220, and averaged 7 points and 6 rebounds per game in 35 games and just under 24 minutes per game for Louisville. This would be, I think, a backup plan if you couldn't get Baba Miller, but not a bad piece as well. And then if you're going to go the forward route, and I think this would be a really fun piece as well, you'd have to find a way to get these guys all on the court, but I think you'd be able to do it because you'd have these really skilled players on the offensive side. I think offense we would not be a 70-point per game team if we added these type of players with already the ones we've added with Nate Johnson and Bashir and now Kostic. But if you could find a way to add a guy like Keontae Jones from Cal State Northridge, who basically averaged a double-double this last season, averaged 13 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, and 4 assists. So could be the combo guard that you're looking for, although he's really kind of a 3 player, really kind of plays the 3. I think you might be able to give him the facilitate if you're averaging 4 points per game. It sounded like he was going to go to USC, but when Chaz Baker-Mazzaro, who decommitted or left Auburn in the transfer portal, committed to USC, looks like he decided to not do that. Kind of seems like he's out of that portion, not going to USC. So could he be up in the air? Could he head to Manhattan? It's a big question. Out of those, do you like any? I would like to see another international product. I like Rapieque. I'm a little bummed that Matthew Gurchik's kind of falling off the radar. I really liked his game. We're not really hearing much about him anymore. Does that mean that he's out of the question? Not sure. Because with this international news, they're kind of keeping it pretty hush-hush. They're doing a pretty good job with that, other than the small rumblings that they are getting out and letting some of these insiders hear. So we'll see what happens down the stretch. We'll see what keeps going. But whatever the case may be, Kansas State needs to land in more than one more impactful player before we get into time to work, before it's time to get going. I don't think they are remotely close to a team right now as we sit. If you only add depth pieces, if you don't add another impactful piece or two, right now where we sit, we're not a tournament team. We are absolutely not. So that needs to change heading into the summer. No doubt about it, my mind needs to make that happen. All right, let's wrap up this show with a coaching addition to Jerome Tang's staff, something that could shake up some moves with Kansas State, something that some people have been crying for, some big needs, a coaching change. We'll talk about that right here on Locked On Kansas State. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Christian Rauh. Thank you so much for watching Locked On Kansas State. Kansas State has added Bill Peterson to be an assistant coach on the Kansas State coaching staff, has worked with Jerome Tang in the past. These are positions that was formerly held by Orlik Malagi, who went to Texas to join Sean Miller's staff. This is a guy who has a ton of coaching experience. I mean, when you look at his resume, he's been coaching since the late 70s and has experience at D1, has experience in the NBA and the G League and NAIA, at the JUCO level. I mean, you name it, he has a lot of experience. His most recent stop was an assistant coach at the University of Denver this past season. Pioneers did not have a good season. They were at 11-21. But this guy has a ton of experience, including spending 8 years at Baylor, where he worked with Jerome Tang. He was the director of basketball operations from 2017 to 2019, before being named the special assistant to the head coach from 2019 to 2024, and helping lead the Baylor Bears to a national championship with Jerome Tang in 2021. Pretty good stuff, right? So, what does that mean? You get a guy like this who has a ton of experience, who has been around and coached NBA players. He brings wealth and experience. Well, Jerome Tang seems to be happy about it. Quote, he said, "I'm fired up to have Coach Bill Peterson a part of my staff." And he says this, he brings a wealth of experience in both college and the NBA. Every coach, player, and person associated with K-State basketball will be better because of the addition of Coach Bill Peterson. Gotta love that. 10 years of head coaching experience across all those levels I mentioned. And with the NBA, he was a special assistant with Golden State. He was with the Mavericks organization, with the Bucks, G League stuff with Texas Legends, Erie Bayhawks. He's worked and mentored with multiple NBA players, including Hall of Famers, according to GoPowerCat.com, such as Hall of Famers Dirk Nowitzki, Steve Nash, and Karl Malone, as well as 13-year pro Jason Smith and current Charlotte Hornet Seth Curry. Those are some big names. I'm talking NBA Hall of Famers. Dirk Nowitzki started off this show international. I mean, best Euro step in the world. Dirk Nowitzki right there, right? Coach Peterson said, "I'm extremely excited to join Coach Tang's staff at Kansas State. I've known Jerome Tang for the past 8 years, and I have great respect and admiration for him and his family. The opportunity to work with him and his staff is a real blessing. The opportunity to work at a storied basketball program like K-State with a rich tradition of excellence is a real honor." Gotta love it. Gotta love that opportunity. Hopefully it makes the splash that is needed to this coaching staff. Maybe on the offensive side, pushing it a little more, finding a way to score more than 70 points per game, not taking bad shots because you have to, because the shot clock's gone, moving the ball around more. With this type of experience, I think he's going to be able to maybe sight and see things that are going wrong a lot faster than maybe some of these other coaches. Might be able to put in that input a lot faster. Hopefully that's the case. Hope that is. But when you have a coach who has been around the game and watched it evolve at multiple levels since 1978, can't be a bad thing. So I'm excited for that one as well. Gotta love it. Got a huge portal edition. Hopefully we got more on the way. Do I smell momentum with the men's basketball team? Is that happening? Are we at that moment right now? Guess we'll find out. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out The Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings, so be the most informed fan on the rapid changes of college football landscape. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Please like the video. Please subscribe. And this has been Locked On Kansas State.